Some good stuff. That's some good stuff.
So A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, continues the bloody saga of the notorious dream demon Freddy Krueger, who terrorizes a teenage boy for his next target to get back at the children of Elm Street. Hey everybody, how's it going? It's me, Devin Hollister, and today I will be reviewing the next Part 2, for the Nightmare on Elm Street movie review franchise series that I've started up for this channel. For those of you who don't know, I've started a series where I'm going to be going a whole bunch of horror franchises. This month I'm going to be trying to completely do as much as I can of the Nightmare on Elm Street and also every single Saw movie, releasing up to the day of Saw X, because I am a huge fan of those horror movies and I cannot wait to see Saw X. I hope my boy Adam is alive, for those of you who understand that. And so as of right now, let's talk about Freddy. So I want to make one thing clear. I've only seen a couple of these movies. I believe I've only seen, well, as of right now, I've seen the original. I've seen this movie before, Part 2, but I didn't really remember it that well, so it's good that I'm revisiting it. And I think that's really about it, other than, I would say, also the remake. Those are the only movies in this franchise that I've seen. So a lot of these movies in this franchise are actually going to be a first-time watch for me. So it's going to be a very interesting ride, and today we're going to be talking about Part 2. So after watching the original film, I was truly curious as to what my experience with the second part was going to be. Like I said, I had seen it before on TV many years ago when I was a kid, but I fondly remembered only certain elements, but of course I didn't remember much of the movie. After appreciating so much of what Wes Craven originally did in the first film, my main expectation for this movie was honestly just the hope that it had some sort of the same magic that the original had, some of the same horror elements, the creativity when it came to the kills, and just mainly just having a good time, because you always got to be aware of sequels that you either didn't remember too well or you never had watched before. My main positive for this movie is the concept, the main idea of the story and how it's continued from, not really continued, but continued from the first film. I really did like the idea of how Freddy Krueger was using the main character Jessie in his dream, and this was to persuade Jessie to kill for him so that he could regain his power from people remembering Freddy. More on later on how that was executed, but the concept was there, and I enjoyed some of the scenes where Freddy confronts him in his dreams. I feel like they gave a good reason, a good motivation for Freddy other than to kill people, specifically why he needs to tell this person to kill for him. I thought that was a good reason, and I thought it worked well for the movie. The whole internal struggle that Jessie has with Freddy, I think they did a really good job to where you can root for Jessie and want to see him get past this nightmare, get past this evil that's haunting him, and defeat Freddy. And my favorite scene actually in the film was actually the beginning scene where you have Jessie having this nightmare where he's in a school bus and everything goes completely insane. The ground breaks down and becomes like this hellish pit with only this small stand of land holding the bus in the air. And it's visually a good intro in the movie and just a good sneak peek at the beginning of his nightmares. I like how they use Nancy's house from the original film into this film. I think it was really cool to have an idea where you have this kid move into the original house, even though it raises some questions and some things about it still don't make logical sense. But, you know, I think that was a really good idea to, instead of a different house on the street, they move into Nancy's house. I mean, really, what else were they going to do anyways? And of course, Robert Englund's performance as Freddy Krueger is still top-notch and iconic, even though he does feel a little underutilized in this film compared to the original. But he still shines in this and, of course, does his gimmicky one-liners while also being a classically terrifying serial killer. And that's really all the positives I had for this movie. Even though I had a few, they aren't really big positives, because there's a couple things in this movie that really got in the way of me enjoying it. Now, before I even tell you what my negatives are, I do want to bring up one controversy about this movie. It's not really my main negative, nor do I really want to consider it my negative, because I know people will get offended and stuff like that. But there's something about this movie that maybe people have not known in the past. I'm sure plenty of you do now because there's been plenty of awareness about it. And it's not that big of a deal, but obviously it just got in the way of my enjoyment because of how the scenes were executed because of these hidden things. For those of you who don't know, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 is considered the gayest horror movie of all time. I bring this up before I get to the negatives because there's certain scene choices that happen in this movie that get in the way of my enjoyment of watching it. You could watch this movie yourself and it's plain to see what the director was doing, even though he claimed many times that this was not his intention. Now, I don't have anything against gay people. That's not what I'm trying to say. There are a couple of scenes in this movie I could have done without, specifically the gym coach locker room scene where you have the creepy kind of pedophilic gym coach who tells Jessie to shower after class. While the coach is in his office, all the sports balls are hitting his face. Also, when you get to the next part, where Jesse's trying to wash himself up, the coach comes in. He's wearing this skin leather outfit, I think it was, or it was a scene before that, which I'll talk about in a sec. And Freddy pushes him against the wall. He pushes him against the wall, and something very interesting happens that I never thought I would see in a film with Freddy. He's whipped with a towel bare naked, showing his ass and everything. There's tons of other scenes that have like, especially with this coach, that have like this weird fetish type stuff, you know. My problem with this is that, first of all, it's very jarring and disturbing to look at, and it just gives you a weird emotional feeling. Like, it feels like a totally different movie, and it feels kind of almost forced in for a type of agenda. Even the actor who played as Jesse himself, in a documentary, brought this up, saying how he was so emotionally uncomfortable with these types of things that it actually stopped him from acting. This movie got so much hate and so much, so much criticism for just how uncomfortable that these scenes were, that he just completely got embarrassed by all of it. And specifically, he called out the director for putting this type of stuff in, because a long time the director lied and said it was not his intentions to make this film feel this way, when it clearly was. I mean, think about the whole premise of Jesse as a character. He has this demon inside of him. He has this problem inside of him, and it's kind of portrayed as homosexuality. Freddy is portrayed as the demon of homosexuality in this movie, and there's nothing wrong with portraying it that way, but the only thing is that when you lie about it, when you lie for so many years and say this is not your intention, when it clearly shows all. Now, if he just told the truth, I had no problem with that. But it's just that what goes on behind these scenes and how people feel about these types of things and how I feel about it when I watch it, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with being gay. Do what you do as an adult. But I'm just saying, when it comes to storytelling, does it fit the story? Does it fit the character? Does it fit the scene? And this movie doesn't do any of that well at all. It feels forced in, and it feels like a message that no one really wants to care about. I gotta say, this movie was actually so boring that towards the end of the film, except for like the pool scene at the end, when you get these weird scenes that show kinky elements that have no purpose other than to create a hidden story of a boy escaping the homosexual demons from within. It adds up to nothing. And again, I'm not saying that you can't have weird stuff like this in a movie, but let it fit the story. Let it fit the story. Let it fit to what I'm supposed to learn or experience. Otherwise, why don't you just make a regular B-movie, cheesy serial killer Freddy movie, There are also certain things in this movie that happen just for no reason. They just happen, and it felt goofy, and it just squeezed in. For example, there's this really random scene where a parrot or a parakeet just starts attacking everyone in the house. There's no explanation behind it, and it's not even a dream sequence. And there's a couple scenes like this in this movie where things will happen just for screen time. It felt like deleted scenes that weren't even scenes of the movie. They just were random scenes. And unfortunately, this should always be a positive in any slasher movie, of course. The kills are pretty lackluster in this film, and it's a shame because the original before it had so much iconic kills and shots. But overall, everyone, while it doesn't have the same magic and feeling as the original film, I can still certainly watch this movie and have a good time. There are things that this movie does really well, and some that it does pretty boring with. So an overall mixed watch for me. But I fully respect you if this one's your favorite. We haven't gotten into really any of the bad movies that I've always heard about. We're almost there, but of course, I don't know. But this film, while it has its issues, it could still be put down as an okay Freddy film. So if you love the original 1984 Nightmare on Elm Street from Wes Craven, I guess you could check this out just for the heck of it, but I honestly don't think I'll return to this movie anytime soon. But if you're curious, I'd certainly say give it a watch. Thank you everybody for watching this review. I know it was kind of quick. And again, nothing against gay people. I just wanted to bring up the controversy and my thoughts about it and why those certain elements of the movie did not work for me. I'm going to make sure that I stay more consistent with my time on posting. I know every time I've been posting on the community thing saying, oh, I'm going to have this next week, it's coming. I'm going to make sure I stay consistent with that. I'm going to stop being lazy. I apologize. Get ready, guys, for next week because I'm going to be starting to post my Saw reviews leading up to Saw X. I cannot wait to see this movie. Next week, I'm going to post my review for A Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors. And just for a quick sneak peek, I think it might be one of the greatest horror movies of all time. I can't wait to talk about it. I'll see you guys there.
Good stuff.